Everyone is hiring AI gurus right now. 21-year-olds who learned a custom ChatGPT prompt are revolutionizing your operations, or even worse, vibe coding the company right into complete catastrophe. So, my name is Michael Bella Hansen, and I've been building profitable systems for 25 years. I built AI systems even before ChatGPT existed. In fact, my very first automation was done back in 2003. And I've been seeing, for the last 2.5 decades, I've been seeing clients make the same mistakes over and over and over. And I can tell you what your business actually needs, and it is definitely not AI gurus. So I'm sure you've seen them, or worst off, hired them. They make nonsensical promises. They have zero business fundamentals. They're just simply, for lack of a better word, they're vibe coding your company into complete disaster. Sure, the demos look good, but they completely crumble under any real world usage. So, they promise that AI will solve everything, but they've never actually run a real business. They've never been responsible for payroll. They never managed cash flow. They've never been responsible for any kind of actual business results. And let me be blunt here. They've never tried that gut-wrenching feeling of knowing if you can actually cover payroll. We've all tried this as seasoned business owners. They have not, because they have never run an actual business. And this is just one thing that we all have to go through as business owners. This is how we learn. And so the cost of having them really, at the end of the day, experiment on your business, it results in broken systems. And a lot of times you can't see that they're broken because it sort of happens in the background, and it takes a while to notice it. So it's just slowly bleeding profits. Or even worse, your business just comes to a complete screeching halt because a poorly executed system or automation of theirs failed. But really, the guru is actually not the problem. It's really a symptom of the problem. There are two big mistakes that I've seen over these last 25 years that I see companies make over and over and over. So the first big mistake I see is what I call tech avoidance, and this is incredibly common. You almost see, like, almost 100% of the time, you'll have a business owner that's very good at sales or marketing or some specific type of fulfillment, and this is very likely you. And you might, you or they would consider tech. They put it in a black box. It's a black box. I don't understand it. It's too complicated, so I'm just going to avoid this black box. And you end up building a business really built around this, not having this understanding, and it becomes sort of this business built on duct tape almost. It's just held together by duct tape. And this creates a lot of problems for a lot of companies. A lot of times you don't see these problems until you grow bigger, but sometimes you see them early on. And I still want to say that you should be proud that you built a business, because it's incredibly difficult. Most businesses fail. So having built a successful business is something to be proud of. But with tech, you could grow even further. With properly executed tech, you could dramatically increase your profit margins. And it's important to not just ignore this black box, because it's going to come back and bite you later on, if not already. So the first time I actually saw this problem in my career was, I was a brand spanking new employee back in Denmark. I had just gotten out of school. I got hired, and I built this. This was back in 2003. I built this automation tool, automation system for a Danish airline, and I proudly presented it to the client, and they rejected it. Not because it didn't work. It worked fantastically well. It had a 100% accuracy rate and much faster than what the staff member, the girl, could do. It could do it, her full-time job, it could do in minutes with 0 errors. But they didn't want it because they would have to let the girl go. And I was completely surprised by that at the time, but of course I was inexperienced. I now know better, and that is that you really need to get all stakeholders involved in the process so that they understand it and they get involved in it. So you have to have the higher ups, the leaders, but also the lower level people that are actually doing the day-to-day work. All of them need to be involved and be invested in the process. And that way you don't have this problem, because of course this wasn't a binary situation where either she keeps her job or she gets fired. She could have been put into something else. If a computer can do something that you can do, you really shouldn't be doing it. Like, you need to find another job where you can take advantage of your human intellect. And the next problem is the theoretical advice problem, or theoretical advice trap. You see this in all kind of industries. You get them in life coaches and various gurus. This is very common. This is not just something that happens in IT or tech, but since we're discussing tech, I will focus on that. But in this case here, you would get a fancy report that is of very little use. It was built by someone with no business experience and who probably did not consult with all the stakeholders of the company. It's just not of a lot of use. And if you get any kind of code delivered, it's oftentimes just built by a coder with no software architectural experience. And it might work or it might not work at all, but if it works, it doesn't work very well. And this is not a small thing. I recently read that Starbucks hired a new CEO. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but they hired a new CEO. He was a career advisor. The market value of Starbucks tanked by 40 billion after they brought him on. Obviously, they very quickly realized that this was a mistake, and they hired a new CEO. He used to run Taco Bell and Chipotle, and the stock market or the market value jumped up by 20 billion. Obviously, they had lost 20 billion in market value, so you have to be careful who you hire, but immediately the market rewarded operation over theoretical advice. So we've now covered the three enemies of scale, really. Granted that the Guru one is new, but the last two I have seen over the last 25 years, so these are really two big problems of scale. So the owner that avoids tech at all costs, and of course the consultant that just sells theory that is disconnected from reality. So this is why, in my opinion, if you need tech, which you do, everyone needs superior tech, but if you need tech, you do not need a coder, you do not need a theorist, you need an experienced software architect with business experience, a person who has lived through the payroll pain, managed the systems, and optimized their own business as well as client businesses across time. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what is a software architect? I've never heard this term. It's actually not very common. And as a software architect, it's pretty frustrating because a coder is very, very different from a software architect. The way I look at it is the coder is like the construction worker that builds the high-rise. The architect is the architect that designs the high-rise. You wouldn't just hire a group of construction workers to go build a high-rise. It would collapse immediately. It is not different for software. You need to structure things in the right way and then have the coders build it out. But without an architect being involved, the project, you could hire the best coders in the world, but it would just be very well executed, but the structure would be structured incorrectly, so things would collapse very, very quickly. So really, in essence, the way I look at it beyond that is that a software architect is sort of the bridge between the physical reality and the reality of software. So oftentimes we will sit down and talk with the business owners. Well, that's how I approach things. I'll sit down with the business owner. I'll talk to the leaders, the decision makers of the company. I'll talk to the lower level ones doing the actual work, get an understanding for both layers, because a lot of times there is a disconnect between leadership and the people that execute the work. There's almost always, like 99% of cases there is. And doing both of this gives me a better understanding of how your business works, so that what generally happens in probably 9 out of 10 cases, honestly it's 9.9 out of 10 cases, pretty much always, the business owner will have a good idea for what's needed software-wise for systems and operations and automations, but in 9.9 out of 10 cases I will have a better solution, not because I'm super smart, because I'm not. I'm just very experienced at this specific skill. And for 25 years, you pick up a thing or two. Then in terms of how we actually do it, a lot of times the first one is software. So either we'll find software that you can use or we go custom. I always recommend you go custom if you can afford it. A lot of times it's actually not even more, but it's just if you can afford it, custom is definitely the way to go because you get exactly what you need. We're not trying to put a circular object into a square hole here. This will fit exactly as you need it. So custom is the way to go if you can. Then a lot of times we'll also do automations. Anything that can be automated should be automated. Another one we do a lot is KPI dashboards. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but we really, nowadays, we live in a time of too much information. The challenge is not finding information now, is finding information you need. And KPI dashboards are just fantastic for that. So you pretty much just boot on your computer and you have a graph that shows multiple graphs a lot of times, but you'll have the data that you need. It tends to look really slick too, so it's enjoyable to use, which does matter. But you get access when you start work or throughout the day to the information you need to make the decisions you need, and any information that does not help you do that, gone. You don't look at that. So it's a very effective way. It's fantastic for executives because a lot of times as business owners, we don't want too much information. We get overwhelmed because we have too many things going on. So you just want to figure out the numbers that matter and then track those numbers, optimize those numbers, and profits come in. And a lot of times, a new thing that we're doing now in the last 3 to 4 years is AI powered through LLM models. In the past, we didn't use LLM models like ChatGPT. There were different systems then. They were not as advanced as they are now, but you could still do a lot with them. Now we can do a lot more, but it also comes at a cost. A lot of bad stuff comes out of AI. This is why something like vibe coding is an absolutely horrifically bad idea, because the LLM models are just not capable of doing that in a functional and sustainable way. So my name is Michael Balle Hansen. I blend CTO level execution with CMO level strategy. I've delivered solutions for Southern California Edison, Accenture, Tech, Vancouver Airport, DDB, News Corp, and countless more. Besides running my IT consultancy company for 25 years, I've also run an ad agency for 20 years where I've generated tens of thousands of leads on a daily basis, managed huge ad budgets, hired hundreds of people, and managed emails in the millions on the weekly basis. And I just love optimizing, just ask my family. But as an example, back in June 2014, so quite a bit before ChatGPT came out, I architected a solution that we used internally in my business, my lead generation business. It replaced 3 full-time employees. And I didn't fire them. I found better jobs for them within my company. But we had 3 people that worked full-time on this. So the whole week, 3 people would take the whole week to complete their work, obviously. It could do the equivalent of their work with 0 errors, I should add, in about 20, maybe 25 minutes. Humans are very, very bad at data entry. If you ever hired any kind of data entry people, there will always be typos. A 1 will turn into a 10. It just happens. This system had 0 flaws. Computers are fantastic at these kind of things. So it would aggregate all this data, and then we would have it make decisions based off the data. So it had some AI built into it, not at the level of ChatGPT now, of course, but it would make decisions based off this data. But still, we replaced 3 full-time employees. So at the core of this is what I call the ground-up profit system. This is where I can discover typically a $100,000 opportunity that most consultants would simply miss. How can I do that? 25 years. 25 years is a long time. You pick up a thing or two. Match that up with the fact that I have 20 plus years of business experience running an ad agency, hiring a boatload of people, and building our own internal systems. I have hands-on experience that most consultants simply don't have. And these 2 things just work very, very well together. I will typically charge about 10% of the value generated, which makes this very, very low risk. The risk is negligible at that point. If you're not ready for that, that's totally fair. I invite you to join my community. There should be a link below. We have a Facebook group. I have a YouTube channel where I'll share pretty much anything I can share with you, show you how you can do this yourself if that's what you wish to do. So that's it. My name is Michael Balle Hansen again, and I've been doing this for 25 years and getting paid very well to do it. I invite you to book a complimentary call. If you're not interested in that, I suggest you join the community, or at the very least subscribe the channel so you can see how you can do all this stuff yourself.